morning, everyone. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered on the territory of Treaty 6, and I'd like to recognize the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. I'd also like to offer my thoughts and condolences to the people of Saskatchewan in the aftermath of the tragic events that we saw this weekend. I'm joined today by Ian Young and Darian Schellinger, who are both advocates for people with disabilities and who will share some of their experiences of trying to live on AISH. On Wednesday, the UCP announced that they would be undoing the sneaky tax increase that they imposed on Albertans in 2019. The UCP took hundreds of millions of dollars from Alberta families in the midst of the worst affordability crisis in 40 years. And while they stopped raising everyone's income taxes, the UCP made conscious and deliberate decisions to stand by one of their most cruel policies, and that is to continue to cut the real value of AISH benefits. In 2018, our NDP government passed a law to make sure AISH always kept pace with inflation. This act passed with the total support of the legislature, including then opposition House Jason Nixon. Jason Nixon now the leader, said that he had heard from those on AISH about how tough it was to live under the current numbers that AISH were at the time. In fact, most of the UCP members said similar things. But in 2019, Jason Nixon and the UCP repealed this law. And just last week, Jason Nixon and the UCP made the deliberate choice to keep cutting AISH. The UCP is bragging about a surplus they did absolutely nothing to create, even while the most vulnerable Albertan families are struggling to buy food and keep a roof over their head. Finance Minister Jason Nixon even had the audacity to suggest that indexing AISH could make inflation worse. Think about that for a second. The UCP thinks that denying people groceries is how to control inflation. We're all feeling the pain at the grocery store. Prices for basic staples are going up. When you have a small fixed income, that means you can afford less food. That means you can afford less nutritious food. These Albertans deserve better. They deserve an honest government. They deserve a government that's there for them. Something that they will only get from the Alberta NDP. So now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Ian Young.
Thank you, Marie. Good morning. In 2004, at the age of 40, I suffered several strokes that left me unable to walk, talk, or swallow. I was diagnosed with a rare condition, and no one was sure what the outcome would be. I was in acute care at the University of Alberta Hospital, then I was moved to long-term care, and eventually I was accepted into the brain injury rehabilitation program at the Glenos Hospital in Edmonton. It was quite a battle, but after nearly a year I finally gained back some of the independence that I lost. I now live alone with my dog in a cooperative in downtown Edmonton. I am considered long-term disabled, and I began receiving AISH in 2005. Since 2019, I've received $1,105 from AISH, which includes $141 for a special diet recommended by my specialist and a registered dietitian. I also receive Canadian Disability Pension, which gives me a moderate cost of living annual increase, but AISH takes that money away dollar for dollar. I have a very hard time making ends meet. My life is very unpredictable because you never know what costs will be cut next. Jason Kenney promised more than once that he would not de-index AISH. His government never kept that promise. We all know the cost of living has increased drastically. I cannot live in my building if I don't have insurance. My tenant insurance has almost doubled. Utilities are skyrocketing. Food prices are rising. Everything is out of reach. I have to be on a special diet every year. That allowance through AISH is reviewed by a dietitian. Last year, because of the cost of living, it was raised by $1. It's sad to say, but when you live a poor life, you tend to isolate. You feel ashamed. I have very good, wonderful friends who know my circumstances, will often offer to pay to take me out for lunch but I could never do that for them. It is very sweet of them, but I am their friend, not their child. The situation of the UCP government has put us in has not only eroded our quality of life, but they've also taken away our self-esteem. When I'm invited to go to social events, I make up excuses why I can't go. I'm not feeling well, because I can't afford to go out. I used to occasionally take a trip to Calgary to visit old friends, as I do not have family living here anymore. But I can't afford to do that anymore. I can't afford to get my family and friends gifts for the holidays or birthdays unless they're around $5. I need a haircut. I haven't bought any new clothes in 2 years. I wash my hair once a week because I can't afford shampoo and food costs are outrageous. After paying all my bills, I'm left with $36 a week, which has to cover my groceries, transportation costs, recommended vitamins AISH will not cover, over-the-counter medications, repairs for my equipment, as the process for that can be lengthy and not assured. There is a subsidized bus pass for people on AISH. It's $36 a month. I can't afford that. I buy bus tickets and I just split a book with a neighbor so we have 5 tickets each. I also plan my trips so I can get back and forth on one ticket because they give me 90 minutes to transfer. So I do what I need to do quickly and get back home on the same ticket. You hear the UCP talking about how they will put money in every Alberta's pockets. That's everyone but us. I'm not here to ask you to feel sorry for me. My community is not looking for a handout, but a handout. We are suffering badly, but rising inflation in Canada has many in general population also suffering. Agencies that support the disabled that rely a big part on donations to keep afloat are also being impacted by low donations. There are people in far worse situations than I am, but a friend once said to me, with recovery comes responsibility. And I will advocate for the quality of life everyone is deserving of. The UCP government must not continue to ignore us. We can't trust them. All they do is cut, not inform. They must stop perpetuating that lie that they fund people with disabilities better than other provinces. Well, other provinces were very generous over a 2-year period during a pandemic, giving extra funding for PPE and additional costs with the pandemic, while vulnerable Albertans got absolutely nothing. We deserve to live in dignity. The government, at very least, must re-index AISH to the cost of living. Thank you for taking time to listen to my and the community's concerns. I'm going to close with a quote by American novelist Pearl Buck. Our society must make it right and possible for old people not to fear the young or be deserted by them. For the test of civilization is the way that it cares for its helpless members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And now I'd like to turn it over to Darren.
Thank you, Marie. My name is Darian. I'm a 28-year-old man with autism and PTSD. Although I wouldn't realize that for the first 24 years of my life. So I wasn't diagnosed with autism until 2019, at the age of 25. I spent years trying to fit in, to try to fit into a neurotypical world. I dealt with a lot of abuse over the years. I spent years wondering why, why was I so different from everyone else? Why was it that I struggled to do things that others did so effortlessly? I never really had much support growing up. Fortunately, I had to deal with abusive family members who tried to force me to be neurotypical and deny that I had autism. Throughout high school, I really struggled with the social aspects, even though I was able to do the academic portions. I ended up graduating high school, but I never really got into post-secondary. So I spent many years afterwards working in manual labor jobs, having to deal with trying to keep up with coworkers, but just never being able to do so. And I also had to deal with a lot of abuse co-workers, as well as abusive management in all the workplaces I've been to. I got laid off at the end of 2019. Fortunately, in 2020, when all the restrictions came into effect, I was able to qualify for CERB. And that I was able to live off of. And then when CERB transferred to CRB in 2021, I ended up living off of that until that came to an end. When CRB came to an end, I had no choice but to apply for barriers to full employment. Well, that's what it used to be called. Now it's called Alberta Supports. And they only pay $833, which is nowhere close to a livable income anywhere in Alberta. I wanted to work, but I knew for a fact I was unemployable. Thankfully, after 15 months of trying to apply for AISH, I finally got approved last June. Now, although I was very happy to be receiving a higher amount, that happiness very quickly went away when inflation kicked in and significantly drove up the cost of everything except for AISH, which has not been increased at all since 2019. I'm forced to buy cheaper goods at the grocery store, many of which have a tendency to be lacking in nutritional value. I barely go out nowadays because everything has gone up with inflation. In fact, many times I can only really go out to a friend's place, because that's all I can afford within my budget. Although I do drive a car, I've been having to drive very sparsely due to the rising cost of gas. So I only drive when I absolutely need to, for example, getting groceries. I have to watch very carefully what I spend. Right now, the fact that AISH is not increasing, but the cost of living is not easing my anxiety or stress. I don't know how the government expects anyone to live on this income. I'm fortunate to have a roommate that helps out with living expenses. Even then, we count each an individual penny. I hope to be able to work again one day. I hope for a future where I can have a steady income and not have to be completely petrified of unemployment or underemployment. Where I don't have to worry about being able to pay the bills or buy food. Where I can go out with my friends once in a while and enjoy life. I, and many others like me, deserve to live like we matter to someone. We want to be able to contribute to society, but we are no good to anyone if we have to struggle each and every single day. This government has a lot of money right now. For years, they de-indexed AISH with the excuse that they couldn't afford to index it to inflation with the low oil prices. But throughout this year, oil prices have been much higher, and yet AISH is still the same. So what exactly is the excuse nowadays? If AISH can't be reindexed with low oil prices, it can't be reindexed with high oil prices, then when will it be reindexed? Just makes me sad to say this. But I sometimes wonder if our lives don't matter to them. Reindex AISH, please. People are dying. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian and Darian, for sharing your stories and for advocating for so many Albertans who are struggling. As Ian and Darian have called for today, the UCP government must index AISH immediately. Index AISH to the cost of living. All Albertans, every single Albertan, deserve to live in dignity. So thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, and we'll now take your questions. Just a reminder, if you're on Zoom, it's the raise hand function. If you're on the phone, it's *9. Seeing none in person, we'll look to the phones. Seeing none, that concludes our press conference for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.